Hello, everyone. I'm Chuck Warren, a member of Community Board 8, and it's my pleasure today to be doing a retrospective with Rita Popper, a longtime board member of Community Board 8 who just recently stepped off the board. And we're going to get a view of Rita's term on the board and other things. And Rita, when we start out, just tell the viewers about yourself, a little bit of what you've done besides the board, and then we can get into some questions about the board.
Hi, Chuck. Thank you for this. I started life as an elementary school teacher in Washington Heights. I took time to raise my family and had to go back to work, and my teaching schedule did not match with my children. So I worked hard, went in, became an advertising copywriter at one of the largest agencies in New York at that time. And one of our clients was Nabisco. Nabisco got into a challenge, and I came up with an idea of how to handle that challenge. And therefore, they hired me from the agency with the agency's permission. And I became a promotion manager at Nabisco. After 6 years, I started my own company called Evergreen Marketing International, and Nabisco was my client.
So do we have you to thank for keeping Nabisco in business at a key time?
It was daunting. I mean, they were not used to having Oreo and Ritz challenged, but they were challenged, and they met the challenge and won.
Very good. So tell us, what other community groups have you been affiliated with other than Community Board 8?
I'm president of the Knickerbocker Plaza Tenants Association for at least the last 20 years, maybe longer. I have stopped counting. And I was also a chair of a housing alliance against downsizing, and we won a battle of not downsizing single people in one bedroom apartments to, as they called it, 0 bedroom. It was really a studio. And also, I helped people on the board reform residents for reasonable development, in an effort to stop MSK from building an ugly building. As Michelle Birnbaum says, I can't believe it's such an ugly building, and someone pulled out their iPhone and said, "But Michelle, you voted for it." And she said, "I can't believe I voted. It was such an ugly building." Something I never forgot.
So tell me how you heard about Community Board 8, because one of the things we've always wrestled with at the board is how to get the word out to the public. And how did you happen to hear about the board?
It's interesting that you ask that question. I never heard of the community board. I received a call from Jessica Lappin's office as the head of the Knickerbocker Plaza Tenants Association. Anybody who was running for office for anything came and wanted to address the people in my building. And I arranged for that. So therefore, I was known as a tenant leader. And therefore, I got this call from Jessica Lappin, actually from Jane Swanson, her chief of staff, who said, "Jessica wants you on the community board." I was thrilled. I had never heard of it. But, on the art committee, we have a show on the street and we do have a table and people do sign up, I still get the question of what is the community board? What are they? And the same thing on the street fairs that I did for about 6 years with Dave Rosenstein. Everybody comes up and says, what is the community board? So we are the best kept secret.
So you talked about being appointed by Jessica Lappin, who was a council member at the time. And when was that? And
In
exactly.
2007.
So you've been on for 18 years now when you stepped off, right?
Correct.
Now, what kind of committees have you been on and other positions that you might have held?
I am on Transportation Committee, which is headed by you, which is excellent. Parks and Waterfront, Zoning and Development, Social Justice, and Women and Families.
That's a lot of committees. I give you a lot of credit. I'm on the board, but I'm not on that many committees.
Well, I was asked to be on the committees, and Zoning and Development includes housing now, and I was on housing before, and always have been interested, obviously, in development.
So tell me what, as someone who's been on these committees and has been on the board, what are some of the challenges that you see that the committee chairs and the board chair have in running the board and the committees?
Everybody who comes, or when the public comes, because that's who we serve as the public, they have questions that are universal to the whole board or problems that are only microscopic on their street. And it is a challenge for the chairs to be relevant to everybody who is listening and keeping their attention. It is not easy. Serving the public is not easy.
Yes, I know what you mean. What do you think about the length of our meetings? I know that's something you always have been concerned about, and I know that we usually start our meetings at 6:30, and it's unusual for some committee meetings. It's not unusual, I should say, for some committee meetings to still be going at 9:30 or even later. And when we get to the full board, we start at 6:30, and it's often, we're lucky if we can finish at 9:30. And the only reason we finish, right, is that the venues we're in say we have to get out by a certain time. And so, do you think that's a problem? And we try to balance the right for everyone to be heard, but also the right for the volunteers who are serving on the board and the committees to not have to spend all night there.
It's very difficult because when the public comes and we are serving the public and we're answering their questions, that you as a chair, who is one of the best chairs ever, not because we're doing this, but it has been my experience, is that you want to hear from everybody who wants to speak. And often a lot of that is repetition. They ask the same question, and the next person, especially when there are 20 and 30 and 40 people all coming for the same issue, that they all want to speak, it's difficult to sit there and listen to the same thing 30 times. We've heard it, they've heard it, but they feel the need to speak. I think we have to consolidate in those areas that you pick 5 people from the 30 people who have come to represent your group. When that is done, it moves the calendar along. I've come out of meetings at 10:30 at night. It's a lot to sit and hear the same thing over and over again. It's like it just doesn't end. So
I know exactly what you mean. So have you seen over the years that there are certain issues that are common, not just to our board, but to other boards, in Manhattan or even in the other boroughs, that certain things come up again and they're consistent, let's say to other Manhattan boards and even to boards in other boroughs?
and there was one instance where something was unique only to Community Board 8, and that was the Second Avenue subway construction. But every board deals with construction, and construction means changing street signs, and street signs that comes right to your committee, which is transportation. And it's not the idea of transportation. There are people who need to get to their accessoride. There are people who are walking with walkers. They need to be able to access transportation. That is unique to every single community board. Every board has different developing structures that they have to deal with, but transportation is the one item that affects every board.
I know that our board has a lot of sidewalk cafes and things like that, and some of the other boards have that, and also our board has a lot of historic districts, and that comes up in certain of the other boards, but not all of the other boards. So and wouldn't you say those are other things where there's a certain amount of commonality in the boards too?
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about term limits. As you know, I mean, you're not obviously not affected, but that back really just before 2000, they put on the ballot a charter amendment that actually limited to community board members to 8 years. We're appointed for 2-year periods, as you know, and so that's 4 terms. And it of course passed overwhelmingly, as all these things do. And there are, some people find that a positive development, certainly. But one issue that I think we're going to be grappling with as people start to come off the board because of term limits is the loss of history and knowledge that's been built up. And can you think of some of the challenges or items that you've seen over the years that might be lost because of term limits? As when they start to hit in another couple of years, basically? Well,
the Second Avenue subway construction took 10 years to do. But I'm on the fence about term limits. I don't think that the history has anything to do with today. Whatever it is, it will change. We change city council members every 8 years if they're lucky, or every 4 if they're not. We change presidents, not often enough. We change mayors. We get some good ones, we get some not so good ones, but we manage to get through with the electronic data that we have now. We can access anything that in the history. So the history is not really gone, but sometimes that history doesn't pertain to what we did 30 years ago, what we did 20 years ago. It's different. The equipment is different. The electronics are different. So I don't think it's as terrible as many people feel. The history will always be there if you access it. Now that's the question, do you want to access it?
Well, let me, as you know, that over the years, our board has changed a lot, and that's because the borough president and the city council members have appointed a lot of new members, and we have vacancies every year. And that brings a lot of new blood in, which I think we all think makes sense. But term limits will cause a much bigger turnover, all at the same time. Do you think that'll have an impact on the operation of the board?
I do. I can see it now and a little in just the last 2 or 3 years. Younger people don't have the patience that we seem to have had. But then again, when I came on the board, the people that were the nucleus were retirees. But now these are working people and they really want to get out in a hurry. So therefore, sometimes it's attitude, and that's something that's learned. We are in a different. I am functioning in it as you are in a different world. I could see it in my grandchildren, uh, even in my children. I'm self-taught; they're not. Um, I think I think it's good, and I think it's not good. And I think it really depends on who gets appointed and why they got appointed and why they want to be on the board. Do they want on their resume? That's not good enough. Do they want to really make a difference? That's different.
Yes. I'd like to remind actually all of our viewers that this is interactive. If you have questions for us, you can use the question and answer feature, and we'll try to answer them as once we're through with our discussion. So I just wanted to make that clear. Let me ask you this: during your time on the board, and you've been you here a long time, what is there one achievement that you would like to point to that you think stands out to you or that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I think that the office, the board office, has become much more interactive with the board and with our our residents. Uh, Electronically, I came on the board and it was mostly paper, paper, paper. I get no paper now. Everything is electronic. And I'm happy to save the trees. Uh, However, I must admit that I used to read the clips that Dave Rosenstein used to have, the news clips. I would read it for a few days. I read the newspaper online. I read everything online. And I honestly don't turn to the news clips as often as at, at all. I rely on, local news to get whatever that is. So electronically, we're different and we're
Well,
faster.
well, let me point to one thing that sticks out in my mind. One of the things that you did, and maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, and that is during the construction of the Second Avenue subway, which was a very big upheaval in our board, and particularly in the area where you live in, right, like 91st Street. And you were very active in trying to help people navigate some of the issues that come up. And we did have a task force on that. And I know maybe did you want to comment on your, on your participation in that effort?
Absolutely. Um, the boring machine that drilled all of the tunnels was lowered and managed at the corner of 92nd Street and 2nd Avenue, which is right across the street from where I live. And it affected businesses locally. Businesses were getting tickets for things that they didn't do, such as the pizza parlor got a ticket because he had a Tide box of detergent. He needed a letter written to the Department of Transportation that this wasn't his. He really didn't have that facility, so I wrote the letters for them if they were ticketed improperly. Because he was at Little Delisi, he was at the corner. He did something that I learned from. He embraced the problem. There was a huge hole in front of his store, and what he did was, and I must say it's one of my highlights, is having worked with Dr. Harad Chanu, who was the president of the Second Avenue subway at that point. And he came, the owner of Delicia made Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter dinners for every single worker and would send the food down on a pulley. And it made life so much easier to have the camaraderie that we understood that. And the MTA was good about understanding that there were people who had to get to their accessoride, that they had to get to a bus stop. And so Marcus Book and I, we we have we moved a bus stop only 1 block. They wanted to move it 3 blocks. So it was a very challenging time. I learned a great deal, mostly patience, which is always something good to have. It was a phenomenal experience. I don't want to do it again, but the results are incredible. I can get to Carnegie Hall in exactly 10 minutes.
Well, and Delicia has very good pizza also. You
Yes, I
might
do. And I still work with him if he has a problem.
One of the other things that I know that got my attention and what you have done when you were on the board is the 91st Street. And people may not know about 91st Street, which is a mapped city street and goes from 2nd Avenue to 3rd Avenue, but it's been closed to traffic for a number of years. And but it's not officially been taken off the city map. And I know that you fought very hard for a lot of things in connection with 91st Street. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, I didn't do it alone. I did it with Dave Rosenstein, who unfortunately is no longer with us. It took us 4 years. And even some board member, um, uh, an architect, got us to, I think it was Harvard or Yale libraries. We went all over the city. It took us 4 years. There was absolutely not one piece of paper as to how this street got closed. Originally, it was supposed to be a super street. It A super street is like Lincoln Center, it's over streets, street ends. It was supposed to be a high school. It was supposed to be a 90-story building. That never happened. But they never reopened the street. And the street was closed. There was absolutely, was told by a man in the borough president's office who happened to have worked on this area at that time. He was an older gentleman. He said, trust me, it was done on a handshake. Well, we needed to have it solidified once and for all. So we acquiesced to whatever the Department of Transportation guidelines were for applying for a permanent pedestrian plaza. And with that came that you have to have activities on the street, which we did. And I have to thank RY Management. They invested $10,000 in us, and we were able to have first run movies, not old movies, first run movies. We needed a Christmas tree so that we could have a tree lighting service. They had one installed. It was fantastic, and now the street is used by us, by the community board. It is a perfect street for our art shows and for other things. And it used to be a training street for the marathon because it is a very steep hill. So I owe a great deal to Dave Rosenstein.
Yes, I know that you both worked very hard on that for quite a while. Let me ask you. You mentioned some of the processes of the board that changed, and then we do a lot more online. And besides that, are there any other changes that you've seen over the years that you feel made improvements to the board and the way the board operates and how we can accomplish things better? And are there any further changes you would like to see?
When I want the board to be more relevant to more people. There has to be a part that is relevant if you want to sign a street sign changed on your block, to if you want to have a bus lane installed or a bike lane installed, which will go through the entire community. So it is the minutia and it is the grandiose. It is not easy to juggle those two balls in the air at the same time. And the minutia bores a lot of people, because if it isn't their street, they're not interested. If it is their street, they're interested. But and sometimes we get the same question month after month after month. The agencies move slowly, but we muddle through. It's a big balance that I don't know how to handle it, which is why I've never ever wanted to be the chair of the board.
Yeah. Okay, so there have been many intelligent and accomplished people who have served on the board. And who do you remember the best, and what kind of contributions did they make?
I could remember Dave Liston was the chair when I came on.
Right.
Elizabeth Ashby is probably the most knowledgeable person on zoning that I have ever met. And if I was on the board another 18 years, I would never know, never have what's in her head. Then there was Terry Slater, Barbara Chocky. Both of those people are no longer with us. And Elaine Walsh. See, we were our nucleus, and we were sort of homogeneous as far as that we were older. There was a whole group of older people that we worked together both at the board and outside of the board. And that's, I mean, and what I learned from you, Robert's Rules of Order, and I also learned how to conduct a meeting. You are the fairest, and I could, of all, you are the fairest. You make sure that everybody who has a question gets an answer.
Well, I appreciate that. And coming from you especially. Let me, the full board meeting and our committee meetings are full of, all kinds of issues and debates. Do any of these stand out in your mind as most memorable and the kinds of events that have happened over the years?
Well, I think the Second Avenue subway was the premier event. When I say premier, in as much as some people had to move out of their homes, I came on the board just as the MTA was beginning to claim eminent domain, and businesses were lost, apartments were lost. Where do we put these people? How do we make sure that they have the same rent that they're paying now? But for how long? Where do you want to put them? And every agency swears that they take care of everyone. And yet we find out that they don't. So I think the Second Avenue subway was a major construction in our community, and it lasted for 10 years.
What about some of the meetings that we had having to do with bike lanes and bikes in general? How do you must remember those?
That's another thing. And the most current one, and I have to tell you, as a senior citizen, and I walk with a cane, is motorized bikes, motorized mopeds, motorized skateboards are scary. Motorized mopeds and skateboards are on the sidewalk. Motorized bikes, unfortunately, sometimes are on the sidewalk, but more often they're not. But they don't obey the rules. And no matter how we get up, and those of us who are not bikers get up and say, we're really afraid. I'm not afraid to cross the street with a car. I am afraid with bicycles. That, especially at night, when it's a black bike and most delivery people are wearing dark clothes, you can't see a bike coming. And yet I'm not asking for a lot other than just having it mandatory that there be lights on bikes. The transportation alternatives is a very organized group, and they have gotten a lot of things without consideration for pedestrians. Anyone, people with carriages, people with old people, young people, little people, big people. It's scary. It's scary. When was I ever afraid to cross the street? And I live on Second Avenue. It's a one-way bike lane going south. However, I have got to retrain myself to look north and south because the bikes are coming in both directions. I don't know how to handle that. And a lot of people don't. That's hard.
And one of the things, by the way, that's been the subject of great hearings in front of our full board, which functions as a land use committee, are the hospital expansions, which we've had many over the years. And I know we've had some memorable hearings about that. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences in relation to that?
Yes. We did not want Memorial Sloan Kettering to build between 72nd and 73rd Street, right on the river. We tried, we residents for reasonable development said that was spot zoning. Land use lawyers said spot zoning is very hard to prove. Originally, it was a garage for sanitation trucks. They came in, they were gone by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They move on the weekends. And the original edict is that you could build above the garage, but you had to keep the garage. Well, nobody wanted to build above the sanitation garage. And so they changed the zoning and came to medical and educational. So Hunter was going to take part of it and move their nursing school there. And the other was for Memorial Sloan Kettering. It was not going to be overnight people. It was going to be just daytime. It put a big strain on public transportation, so on and so forth. And of course, we lost, and Hunter never had the money to build, and we knew that they wouldn't. And now we have Lenox Hill or Northwell over Lenox Hill. Lenox Hill is different. It's smack in a residential area. As we call it, Bedpan Alley is really against the, not in where there are all residents. The residents are further up. And all they really ask for is build the hospital within the zoning envelope for the area. So they came back with I can't remember how many, like 400 foot, 500 foot condo building on Park Avenue that was going to help them pay for the construction over the rest of the building. So they went back, they redid it. That's all they wanted, was stay within the zoning envelope. I remember asking Anthony, who's on our board, an architect, I said, is zoning a suggestion or is it a law? And he said, it's a law. However, as you walk up and down the streets, you know that the zoning was obviously a suggestion. So unfortunately, I think there's one more vote in the city council, and unfortunately, their city council is all 5 boroughs, and there are people who really don't care, and they'll vote as they want, not any different than our people in Washington. Some people just vote. They have absolutely no idea what they're voting for.
What do you see as even though your term on the board has ended, do you plan on staying involved with the board in some manner?
I have been named a public member of the Arts Committee. and I am very involved in the parks and waterfront. I have raised $13 million for the reconstruction of Rupert Park. Rupert Park now cannot be used by children who are 5 years old and older, and barely can be used. With the pandemic, we have dog runs. We have a dog run in the new park. The new park has won awards. It was supposed to have shovels on the ground 2025. It is now 2026. I keep telling them I'm racing the clock. I'm 86. I want to be able to live to see it. That's where my heart lies. And of course, if any lectures come up that are relevant, mostly in women and families, I attend them.
Can we expect you to maybe show up at a transportation committee here and there?
Absolutely, especially you haven't heard the last of me for changing half the lights on East 91st Street, our pedestrian plaza. Half the lights have been changed, and the DOT went away and it hasn't come back. It's 4 or 5 years. And the lights that are there now have been there 50 years. The trees were short and the lights were tall. Now the trees are tall and the lights are short. So keep listening for me, because I'm not letting this go yet.
We will. So let me ask you this then. What do you see ahead as the biggest challenges, let's say, for the community board? What would you think, just from your perspective, looking at your service and what you see maybe coming on the horizon? And there are some, I think we've already talked about in our community board, some charter amendments that are, could be placed on the ballot as early as this November.
It would be nice. I'd like to see the community. I'd like to see that the community knows more that there is a community board. Obviously, people keep asking us, what's the community board? So they don't know. Nobody knows. And for some reason, it's a deep, dark secret. I didn't know until I was asked to be on the board. So I would like to see the board be more relevant to what's going on in the city. I would like to see our board get more involved with where affordable housing is on everyone's top line of whoever is running for office. And I have knocked my head against the wall for 18 years, maybe more because I started before that. And I'm not giving up, but my head is beginning to hurt. And yet we have a huge affordable community right in Community Board 8 in Stanley Isaac's homes. And every winter we get the same thing, that the boilers are old. They are not giving heat. They don't have hot water. They lead paint, so on and so forth. I would love to see the board take an active position and put people's feet to the fire who do make a difference. They change commissioners at NYCHA like we change our shirts. Nobody really cares, obviously, because but it breaks my heart when a parent comes to a meeting and says that she had to take our children to an athletic club to ask if she could use the bathroom to wash her children down with hot water. This is in our community. So we want affordable housing. We have affordable housing. Make it work more. There are empty apartments in there. We have a member on our board, Sandrea, who lives in Stanley Isaac's homes. That's where I'm coming from.
Do
I'll
you
take my
see,
soapbox away for 5 minutes.
do you see there, a lot of people while a community board is only advisory, that particularly we should have even less power, and some of the amendments that they're talking about that might go up for a vote to amend the charter could conceivably reduce the community board's power. You think that's is that something that we ought to really be concerned about?
It's an absolute crime. That means it is making the public irrelevant. We serve the public, and we serve it to the best of our ability. We write letters, we have motions, we have everything to try to help. We stick with it. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it, Chuck?
Would you be in? Do you think we ought to have more authority?
Yes, I do.
What would you like to see? What would you like to see if we could get a change in the charter?
Like to see that when we need a street change because an ambulance needs to load and unload, that we don't have to dance through a lot of steps to get that done, or an accessoride, or how about just putting time clocks at every bus stop? There are some that have it and some that don't. There are people who don't have an app on their phone and can read it. I have macular degeneration. I can't read the phone. So it's difficult. We can make it more relevant. We will get it done because we have nobody to answer to. People who work in agencies are paid whether they put up a sign or they don't put up a sign. And it's the city, but it shouldn't be the city. Why isn't it functioning? At any rate, that's how I feel.
Good. We have a couple of questions that people put in, and I think maybe I'll have you answer them. And one question that came from one of our board members is, what advice or suggestions would you give to new members of the board coming on?
Go to as many committee meetings as you can. Find your niche and stay with it. I was on a committee that I realized I could not contribute to, and that was landmarks. I didn't have the capability of going to view different things, and the same about street life. I didn't want to go to visit every application. So just stay with it. Pick something that is relevant to your community. You represent a part of the community. Hopefully, it is demographically spread out. We are a huge community board. We go from 59th Street to 96th Street, the Rivet to Central Park and all of Roosevelt Island. We are overpopulated. We are, we have the largest amount of population, so that 50 people have been chosen from this vast number to represent the community. You have to do it. You have a job to do. That's my advice.
Well, I know that when you were on the board, you always tried to attend every meeting. It was very rare that you missed a meeting. And I guess that would be one of the other things that hopefully other new members who join would do that. And we used to have people who didn't show up. I think we have more who show up now at this point.
We used to have a full board at most of the meetings. And we came, it was like a business. We went to a business meeting. I don't think that, it's a sign of the times, the movies that are being made aren't made, and I used to love to go to the movies. So things change. Younger people have less sitting, are not happy sitting, but it is worthwhile. Believe in something and work for it. Whether it happens or not, just work for
it. We have another question from someone that you may know by the name of Hannah. And she said, how do you want to be remembered?
As a kind old lady. As somebody who worked hard. That was just a joke. Somebody who worked hard for housing for everybody. Mitchell-Lama housing saved my life and my family's. And there is somebody else. There are many people out there like me who need affordable housing. It is not something that should be kissed away. And I'm really tired of hearing that, well, developers don't like it. Every developer who had Mitchell-Lama, and many of them had 4, 5, 6, every developer is a multimillionaire. So what it is, they don't want to wait for the money, so they want the money right up front, so everything is now a condo. I want to be remembered as an advocate for affordable housing.
Well, I'd say, Rita, it's for someone who served with you the 18 years you've been on the board, that it was a great pleasure to work with you, and I'm hoping to continue to work with you as in your new capacity as a public member and as someone who's going to be attending our transportation meetings when you can. And you've contributed a tremendous amount to our board and to the community. And I think all of us owe a lot to you for help, for being very strong in support of not just affordable housing, but in support of so many different things in our community that have added to our community. So I appreciate very much the opportunity to discuss these things with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at some of our meetings as we go forward. And I don't think we have any other questions, so I think that ends our discussion here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. It's always been a pleasure to attend your meetings, whether it's just for one sign in a street or it's for a whole avenue. You have always been incredible. And I have to tell you that Craig, who serves as your co-chair, is so knowledgeable because he works in transportation in Westchester. So it's always nice to hear. It has really been an honor and a privilege to serve on the board.
Thank you very much. Believe that concludes our discussion.